My lords, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the passenger only series on Transport Fever 2. After the first episode, I've allowed the game to run with the date paused for about half an hour or so, because I wanted to make sure we had a decent amount of money to work with in today's episode. In that time, while it was just building up money for us, I've done a few decorations in and around the station at Hull. You might be able to spot a couple of them on your screen. I will point them out to you. We've got a couple of benches on the station forecourt. We have a nice station sign towards the front of the station forecourt as well. There's a new vending machine that's appeared, which will keep the people happy and fed. And there's also a departure board on the front of the station building as well. So things are looking pretty good so far. Now, as we said in episode number 1, and we will say it again, we don't have the possibility to have long haul freight on this one to give us a very, very solid bedrock to our business. So in terms of funds, it's going to be a bit tighter. You know, freight really is a big money spinner in Transport Fever 2, and without that option available to us, we perhaps have to be a little bit more cautious, or we have to allow the game to run a little bit between episodes to ensure that we've got a decent financial bit of backing to enable us to progress in the next episode. But as we progress further and further into it, and we have extra lines running on the map, hopefully generating us more profit, then the time that lapses between each episode should decrease, hopefully. So let's bring up the UI so we can see exactly how things stand. So we've got 15 million, which may or may not be enough for what we want to do, and we're making about $1.5 million a year, and again, just from passenger services, that's not too bad at all. We're in November of 1951, so we've only been going for about just under 2 years in terms of calendar time that has elapsed, so we've still got plenty of time ahead of us. We've had no new unlocks or anything as of yet. There goes one of our buses from Hull, just ferrying people around the city of Hull, and they're all making us money. And in fact, we can have a look at all this on the line statistics. We can see the north, well, I've spelled that wrong, that's a little bit unfortunate. There we go, that's better. So the north-south main line is making us just under 2 million a year, give or take. The Thurrock bus loop is nice and profitable, as is the Hull bus loop as well. The Thurrock bus loop is in and around its capacity, so that's something we might want to keep an eye on. The Hull bus loop, I have added a couple extra buses. I added another 2 off camera, because this station here outside of the station was quite overcrowded, so I needed to get some of those passengers on the way, and as we can see, that's now decreased the amount of people we have at this bus stop. New vehicle, we have the Lockheed Super Constellation. No real use to us or interest to us at this moment in time, and I highly doubt the Lockheed itself will ever be of any interest to us, because if we do ever venture into aircraft, it's going to be a couple of years in the future, and that plane will probably be somewhat obsolete. So one other change I've made at Hull, just for decorative purposes, is I've got these gantries just after the platforms with some signals on them. They do function as signals, and it just ties the place together a little bit, and it makes it look a little bit more realistic with your station signals on the overhead gantries just on the edge of the platform. We could put them somewhere on the platform itself, but here is just fine, and as we can see, although it's obscured by the smoke, the lights are dynamic, they do change and they do function. Okay, so what's the plan for today then? Well, we do have a bit of traffic down here, although I think most of it is heading to Hull, and it's just backing up because of this junction here towards Rugby. But I think we will put in a passenger service, obviously, that's all we can do, into Rugby, and we can connect it in to here, and the first destination or the first service we will have will run from Rugby into Thurrock, and then finances depending, we might run over to the town of Staveley as well. So let's make a start on that front. We're going to want a passenger building over here in Rugby. We used, I believe it was blue trim for the main line, so I think all the others we'll go for a green trim. We'll go for a large building size, and much like the other stations, we'll set it to 4 platforms or 4 tracks. We'll have the long canopy, high speed tracks and catenary. Again, this one will be a terminus station because we're right at the edge of the map here over in Rugby, so there's nowhere else for the lines to run after they've been here. And in terms of station location, I think we'll just pop it somewhere like this. That will do. We have room to expand to the south if we want to add in more platforms and tracks at a later point. The first thing we want to do with this station then is connect it into the road infrastructure in the town of Rugby, so it will actually be viable and people can get to and from the station. And let's just try and get this as close as we can, just so we don't have that dip and that little ridge line between the roadside and the station forecourt, something like that. That looks pretty tidy to me. So we'll build that there, and I think it makes sense. Can we squeeze that along there? Not as a straight road, we can't. Let's just keep you level, and we will just connect into this road, but it won't be right on the edge as we just tried to do, because the station building will be in the way somewhat there. But that will work nice enough for us, and it will be functional. I would like to flatten this terrain off here, but we really don't have the money available to do it. Well, we have the money, we can pay for it, but the money is better spent elsewhere at this moment in time, so we won't do it just yet. And then we want to give ourselves we could use this sort of bus station. It is going to give us traffic lights, which is a little bit unfortunate. I suppose what we could do, could we pop it on the end, or would that look a little... No, that doesn't look too odd. And it still allows us to expand our station to the south if we want to later on. Let's have a look. We could do it that way around if we wanted to as well, but I think that one's the best. We'll go for the 1980s, that way it's future-proofed. Let's just increase the terminal length to 40 meters as well. And it's going to be... Can we get... Oh, look at that, we could have 2. That's quite interesting. Let's go for 2. So the center island... Okay, so these are the options we have for decoration in the center island. Something like that, or we can have pine and rocks, but I think we'll just go for the... What does a pond look like? No, we'll go for the square, I think. What else do we have? Street era, we'll keep that as new. And the connection street length. What is that altering there? Can we see? It's this connection what actually nips into the road on. So we'll keep that as short as possible. Sort of like that. That'll do quite nicely. That's called it Rugby Central. We probably want to rename that to Rugby Station, if I'm honest, because it's a bit more descriptive as to what it's actually going to be serving. So this is obviously generated, or this is included or added in by one of the mods that I'm using for this series. Can't remember the name of the mod itself, but it just makes it a little bit different, and we don't have to use bus stops or bus stations as you normally would, so you could mix it up a little bit and have a bit of variety on the map, which is always welcome. So that will take care of the station capture, and much like we did in Thurrock and Hull, our initial bus system for the town of Rugby is going to be a very straightforward and very simple loop around the town itself, aiming to encompass as much as we possibly can, like that. I would like to connect that road, but I think it might be a bit too expensive. Let's see, I mean, it's 200,000 just to upgrade that road there, and then it's 700,000, so all told that little bit of road there costs us just shy of $1 million. But we are connected, and I think it was worthwhile doing. It keeps it keeps it a little bit neater. So that's as many bus stops as we'll have to start with. As I said, nice and simple. The bus systems in most of the cities will be upgraded as time progresses, but for now, keeping it simple just to get things moving is the way ahead, and that will serve as our road depot for Rugby. So let's get a new line then. So we're coming from Rugby Station, and we're just going to complete a circuit of the city like that, and yep, that'll do what we need it to do. And this will be the Rugby bus loop 01. We'll maintain the blue colour scheme that it's selected for us. I've spelt that all kinds of wrong. I'm not even going to try and pronounce I've spelt that. We just need to swap those around. There we go, Rugby, that's better. Let's get ourselves a couple of buses now. We know from experience starting with 4 probably isn't going to be enough, so we may as well go ahead and start immediately with 6. I think it's the Sauros we're using, so we'll go for 6 straight off the bat. It still comes in at under $1 million, which is pretty nice. Which blue is it? I think it's that one there. Assign them. So there's not going to be much call for any passengers down here yet, but as soon as we get everything connected in, and when I say everything, I do of course mean our station here, when we get it connected in to our line over here, then we should see that passenger demand starting to crop up over here. And similarly, as soon as we have trains coming in from Fuddock and dropping off here, then the passengers are going to be using this to get into Rugby itself. So now for the tracks, and as we can see, unfortunately, because of the station position, we've got this curved road here, which is going to cause us a few problems, I dare say. So I think what I'm going to do is actually delete some of that road as far as where it starts to crest the hill over there, and replace that with a road that, as it leaves the town of Rugby, it's a little bit straighter, just so our level crossings are going to be a little bit tidier as we depart from the station, and then we'll curve it around and swing it into where we just deleted it up to, like that. So we have the connection back, but it means we're not having to deal with a longer stretch of road here, because it's now nice and level rather than being curved. Okay, so now let's work on connecting this all together, and I'm going to try something a bit different here. What we're going to do is going to run 2 tracks here, and then from these 2 tracks we're going to have basically all the stations, all the platforms connected in. Too much slope. I guess we're too high up on our tracks over there. Yes, we would have been, wouldn't we? Okay then, well, rather than trying to mess about trying to get it to the correct height, we'll just do it the traditional way, shall we say, and just run them out from the platform direct. And let's keep that at the same gradient. Run everything out immediately. And in fact, yeah, let's have them curve over, become parallel tracks prior to the level crossing. I mean, it's made a bit of a dog's dinner of the level crossing, as we can see. All of our, yeah, I don't like the way it's done that. So I think we'll just try that again. And I may even just temporarily remove this road here, lay the tracks first, and then do the road secondary. So let's try this again. So keeping everything on the same height gradient like this. Have these now run parallel like this. There we go. And then somewhere here is where we'll put in our level crossing. So let's go like that. Let's just have you stay straight. That looks a lot better. Okay, so now we'll just finish it off by bringing everything back together. There we go. Yeah, that looks a lot more pleasant. Right, so what we want to do now is probably just bring these into the main line here. Like this. And they can come in at a fairly decent speed there. And the crossing points should look nice and tidy. Yes, they do. And now it's a simple case, and simple is very much used in air quotation marks here, of connecting this to our existing tracks over here. Now we have a hillside here, so we're going to have to tunnel through there. There's no two ways about that. So that's going to cost us a fair bit of money because of the tunnel. Let's keep it straight. Where's the straight snap? There you are. Yep, that's okay. And then this fellow will come out as well. There we go. Right, before we go any further, let's just think about how we want to connect this in. Ideally, we're going to want access into Hull as well. And I think for Hull, we'd have a junction between these two tunnels here. But for Fuddock, the junction will be between this signal set and this signal set. So we'll have a triangle style junction or a Y junction here. So let's concentrate on Fuddock first of all. And in fact, just to make sure we get this right, let's start from the junction side. Now the handy thing about not having to worry about freight is that you know you're not going to have 300 meter trains, at least not right now. So we can be a bit tighter when it comes to our signalling at our junctions, because the chances of the trains consist blocking the junction when it's waiting at a signal are somewhat reduced, because our trains are naturally that little bit shorter in length. So there's our junction from the Fuddock main line. Where's our track? So we're going to have to curve over this way to then come back on ourselves, which isn't ideal, but it shouldn't cause too many problems. And we want to aim for a minimum of 100 mph here. I know we have a slight drop here at the level crossing, but we can live with that. We also have to just bear in mind the height difference that we're probably facing here. So let me just see what would happen. Well, that's not too bad, and it's a good speed. I mean, it's not the fastest in the world, but we're not going to be running mega fast trains down here at any point. This is going to be sort of thing that a pacer will be serving when we get to that sort of era. So that should work out okay. So now we want to have a connection, as I mentioned, somewhere between these two tunnels here, so we can also run services from Hull over to Rugby, as well as Rugby into Fuddock. So let's, again, we'll do the same thing here. We'll come from the junction end. And how does that look? That's tidy enough. Let's see if we can eke a bit more speed out of that. 90 mph would be lovely. This inner track might be a bit slower. Yeah, down at 89, but I'm not going to split hairs over that. That should be more than serviceable. Now I think we are a little bit sunken when compared to our track over here. Let's just have a look. 103 meters there, and over here Nope, we're pretty much exactly where we need to be, which is very, very handy. So let's just run it out, and if we keep it at the same height, then we know we're going to have a nice connection. And again, let's go for a minimum of 100, and I intentionally set this outer one to 101 because then I know the inner one would be at worst 100. Now this connection here might be a bit slower because it's going to be a bit tight in terms of the angle that we're coming in at. That's not too bad, 105, no 95 there. And the actual crossing point itself looks, again, very tidy. And that's the advantage to having the gradients maintained. You tend to get a nice cross point when you're laying tracks over existing tracks. But there we go. That will work quite nicely. So now what we want to do is signal this new junction here, and of course put some blocks in between here and Rugby Station. So let's start with signaling the junction first of all. I don't think I'm going to have any extra signals on this bit because in my head, by having the blocks start further away from the junction, the chances of a mainline train, which obviously are priority, being in the junction block over a train from this way is weighted in favour of the main line. So we're not going to decrease the block size on the main line, but we are going to make sure the blocks on this connection line, this branch line, are pushed as close to the junction as we possibly can. So let's see, let's get ourselves, let's just use a 3-aspect signal. These want to be one way. So like I said, by having the block start as close to the junction as possible, then it should naturally encourage the mainline trains to be the ones taking priority, as they are in the block here a lot sooner. So that will do for that way. Let's just drop it now to a 2-aspect signal, and then all we're going to do is a couple of blocks in the midpoint of this junction here. And do we want another block in there? Probably not. Now, because these are both branch services, we can have the blocks from both directions be quite close to the junction itself. There we go. I'm tempted to put another block in here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. Yeah. Here, that's probably okay. Right, so from here now to the station at Rugby, it's just a case of putting in a number of blocks so we can have several trains running down here. Now, given that this is coming from 2 different directions or 2 different cities, we could have quite a few trains running down here. So let's keep our blocks fairly short spaced. I'm not going to put any inside the tunnel, but we can definitely get a couple in here. Right, what we want to do now is something that we've forgotten to do thus far, is put in a diamond so we can have full access on all platforms. And the diamond's going to be quite slow speed, down at 50 miles an hour. But that's not the end of the world. So now we have access to every single platform should we choose, which is always ideal and handy. I think we're now ready to start the 2 lines. We've still got 10 million left, so we should have enough to get the trains up and running, because they're not going to be as flashy as the mainline trains, because, well, these are just local services. As I said, eventually these local services, rather than being point to point, which is what they are at the moment, they will encompass other cities as well. So this Rugby to Thurrock line may end up going from Rugby to Thurrock to Staveley and then up to Leeds, for instance. Similarly, the one that comes from Rugby to Hull, what we might do is have it come down from Sheffield, come down here, connect in, and then head on down to Hull. Who knows? But we're not going to be doing straight point-to-point lines as time progresses. Initially we will have to, because we have to be a bit smart with our building costs, and having expansive lines all over the place straight off the bat isn't the best way to do it. Anyway, enough about that. Let's start a new line. So we'll do the Rugby to Thurrock line first of all. That's a pretty nice colour selection, so we'll allow it to go with that. So that's now both platforms spoken for that we have access to at Thurrock, which is fine. And in terms of line name, for now we'll just call it the Rugby Thurrock line. Eventually that will change as I said, we start hitting more and more cities as part of this line's orders. So that's all we need for now, nice and simple. So let's do another new line then, this time from Rugby down to Hull. And again, we'll give it a Rugby Hull branch as a name, but the names are likely to be dynamic and changed to reflect all the cities that they're hitting, or at least the start and end points in terms of their line orders. So rather than naming every single city, we go Rugby, say, to Carlisle, and then we just tend to know that it's going to be hitting other cities between those two. Anyway, enough about that. So 2 new lines set up. Now we can think about what sort of service or what sort of train we want on these lines. Now we could go for something like the Rotorfile, which is obviously a rail bus. Whether I want to or not is a different story. Or we could actually go for what's maybe a little bit too slow. What could we, maybe the 500,000 years, not bad. Let's just have a look at locomotives. So we don't really want to use the Flying Scotsman. The A35 might be a little bit too slow for what we need. How much is that? 6? No, it's the same as the A47. We could, no, that's a bit, no, we don't want that. I think we'll go for the A35. Yeah. And then for the passenger wagons, because this is limited to, was it 60, 64, 62? What do we have? New buses, Mercedes-Benz, and some new locomotives. Okay, let's have a quick look at them while we're here. We may as well. Maybe something that's nice and cheap. Maybe something like this then. What about you? Probably not. No, I think we'll go for something like this. So, I don't think there's much difference. These are just reskins. Oh, maybe we'll go for that. 0 per year. No, we won't do that. That's cheating. Let's go for the blue one. So remove that. Add you. So you're 65 miles per hour. So any carriage really would be fine. I don't really want to use those because they just look visually a bit too small even for a branch service. So I think we'll go for the BC4. And we'll run 2 per train. Now the problem is we can only afford 1 of those, so maybe we'll have to sacrifice and go for something like this instead, which is a bit cheaper. Maybe like that. How much is that now? Let's go back to that. So we could buy 2 of those. No, we can't. Just short of what we need. I think that's a little bit too small, really, the 6-wheeler. Yeah, we will use the Donna Bush. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation. It probably isn't. I think that. Let me just have a quick look here. So you cost 3 million. You cost about the same actually. So what about? No, you're too slow. But you are cheap. You're too expensive. You're very expensive. Yeah, I think it's going to be this engine. We're not far off having the money to pay for this. Hopefully there's a passenger. Oh no, they've both just dropped off, so we're not going to have the big income, or the relatively big income, anytime soon. So what we'll do is, just for now, run at a high speed just so we get the money, and there we go. So we can buy 2 of these, and what we'll do is, rather than putting 2 on one line and then having one service with no passenger availability or no trains on it, we'll put 1 per line for now. So you will be the one. Which colour were you? You're, in fact, let's put it here, then we can see both colours at the same time. So you are that colour? Yeah. So you can go on the Rugby to Thurrock branch, and then this one will go on the service between Rugby and Hull. So the last thing we'll do for today's episode then, while we're here, is very quickly just demonstrate some of these asset mods that we have. And if we search for station, what we can do here, no, that's not what I want to search for. I want to search for gantry. Whoops, there we go. Is we can build ourselves some station gantries at Rugby. So let's go for solid gantry left stand. So if we put 1 there and 1 there, and then go for solid gantry right stand, they should line up. No, that one doesn't, so we'll have to reposition that. Let's bring it to, let's have that one there, and then will that line up now? Yes. And then just demolish that spare one. There it is. So then, rather than having signals against the lines, we can have them overhead. So let's go to our signals, and what do we want to use? Let's just use a 2 aspect here. We want these to be 2-way, of course. We can't afford it. Never mind. Which is oh, you're a bit low actually, aren't you? There we go, gantry, that's the one we want. But yeah, you can see they float, but when you put them up against a gantry, they're precisely the right height to look as if they're attached to the gantry itself. So what we'll do then is, again, we'll just fast forward, but I'm going to pause a date while we are fast forwarding, because we don't want to race through the calendar too quickly. We want to get some cash flow. We don't need much, it's only 3,000 per signal, but we are negative 300 at the moment. So we'll wait for a couple of arrivals and some passenger payouts, and then we can put these signals on. Then we can have a cab ride, and that's where we'll call it for today's episode. So our mainline trains have just crossed, so they'll be getting into their respective stations pretty soon, and hopefully giving us a good enough payout to fund these signals here. No, not quite, we're still negative. I mean, I could borrow the money to pay for the signals, but I'm loath to do that. I don't want to be paying interest on the loan just for the sake of putting in a few overhead gantry signals. Tell you what then, while we're waiting, let's just see. So I take it you didn't pick up, oh no, you picked up 3, it's not bad. What about you over here? You got 1. And where's the train itself? Has it departed already? So there's the one from, oh there it is. Have you anybody on board? No, but we do have people waiting over here. Looks like Thurrock is the destination of choice as it stands right now. You've just picked all of those people up, which is good. So these 2 services here, they're probably not going to be profitable for a little while, but as we saw with the main line, the passenger demand does soon kick in. It doesn't take long for it to take effect. I'm acutely aware of this traffic right here. However, it isn't a problem that I am too concerned about. In fact, perversely, having this high traffic volume down here might work in our favour, because I'm not sure if the travel time bears any impact when it comes to the AI pathfinding algorithm. And what I mean by that is, if when they're doing their calculations to what mode of transport they're going to take for their journey, if they've got to wait for X amount of time in this traffic here, are they more inclined to hop on the train instead? I don't know. I'm sure it does have some impact, but yes. And look at that, we've already got nice pickup and nice generation over here. And in fact, we've got that many, you're not going to clear the platform with just 2 coaches. So that's something we have to bear in mind. We might want to add extra coaches on these services a little bit later, but for now it should be fine. Anyway, we've got 30,000, which is enough for the signals. So let's go ahead and put some of these gantry signals on here. And again, I've said singles rather than signals, and again we've just lost some money, so we can't do it. Oh well, I'll do that between episodes, because trying to find that perfect time to do it is going to get a little bit frustrating. So what we'll do now is we'll pause the date again. Which service do we want to ride on? Into Hull or into Thurrock? I think we'll go into Hull. So this service here, we'll just keep this guy pinned open. As soon as we get into Rugby Station, we'll hop on board, and it's only a short journey, so we will do the round trip between these 2 stations, and that'll serve as our cab ride. So let's get on board now. Oh no, that's poor positioning because of that. Let's just come. Can we? There is a key to lower the camera, but I'm damned if I can remember what the key is. That's the horn. Yeah, I would like to go lower, but I think we're just gonna have to bear with this. It's not the best view, but that'll do. Yeah, and I'll look at the key bindings between episodes so I can find what key it is to lower the camera when you're in the cab view. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. As always, a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters, whose support and generosity is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much indeed for that. We will be back in a few days' time, maybe even tomorrow actually, in terms of episode schedule. I'm keeping it free and easy at the moment, so we shall see. We're going to have problems with this tunnel here. Let's just see. No, we're just fine. So anyway, as always, your comments and feedback, suggestions, etc. welcome down below. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, all that remains for me to say is, as always, take very good care of yourselves. It's ta-ta for now.